I'm Ron Willet. Welcome to Whiskey and Wireless. We're going to sit down with industry professionals, have spirited discussions, and talk about what shaped the wireless industry and why we are where we are today and where we're going to be tomorrow. So downtown Orlando, I'm parked right down there, right? I can't find my key to my car. Like my car starts and it goes, but I don't know where my key is because I paid my son to detail my car and I have no idea where he put the key. So as I'm doing this, I'm concentrating on you because I care about you. But I have no idea if my car is going to be there when I get back. And the question for you is, you grew up in Alphabet City. How long would that car be there, knowing that all you have to do is get in and push the button and drive away? I can't lock it.
2 seconds.
2 seconds. So
And after the guy stole it, by the time he got to the light, the wheels will be off the car.
yeah, and so I'm a little preoccupied with the fact that I may not have a car when I walk back
won't.
down there.
Well, maybe.
So from Alphabet City to
Well, it was
Wireless.
more Greenwich Village, but yeah, not too
Well,
far.
I'm from Florida. I don't know the difference between that.
Yeah.
So well, how'd that happen?
How'd I get to what?
Wireless.
To wireless. I was in a nightclub business in New York City,
That's not surprising.
and I met a girl.
That's also not
and
surprising.
She lived in L.A., and one day she woke up and she said, "Move to L.A. with me." And I said, "Sure." So we get in the car. I have $1,500 in my pocket. This is 1993-ish, right? I get $1,500 in my pocket
You
that
were
I
in the
borrowed.
nightclub business. Okay, all right. That wasn't yours.
And we got in her Toyota Celica and drove to LA. We had an apartment. The apartment was $900 a month in a very nice area, right around the corner from the Beverly Center. It was really, really pretty
Probably
area.
not $900 a month right now.
No. And I'm like, I gotta get a job, right? It's like, I gotta get a job because she's in the film industry and she was a makeup artist.
Okay, because I was making assumptions for a second, but it's okay.
She was
She's
in the film industry,
yeah.
and she was a makeup artist, and I'm like, I have to find a job. So a friend of ours, knew a guy in the paging resale business.
Oh my God, paging
Resale business. And I went to work for him, one of his friends, right? I went to work for them in the paging, and I was running, the paging service that they did out of the back of like a pawn shop.
I was the cool kid, right? So I had a pager that you would call and a live person would answer.
So did I. I eventually got there. They had a number.
No, I was huge. Yeah.
They would resell the service for a company called PageNet. And at the time, PageNet was probably the fastest growing paging company. So I went to work for them in LA. And I had a knack for the computer systems, and I knew the computer systems, and it just came to me. So we broke up, of course. That didn't work out. It didn't work out.
Let's take a drink.
Yeah, drink to that.
That's heartache.
We didn't work out, and I was living in LA, and I didn't like it. I'm a New York kid, through and through.
Yeah.
So
even now,
they have an office in New York, and the office was upgrading to the computer system. So there was a role for me there. So I went back to New York. I went to work for them in New York City, in 2 World Trade Center. On the 14th floor.
Really?
Yep. And I always had my apartment in New York, so it wasn't like I couldn't find a place to live, or I always had everything, right? So I went to work for them, and then, believe it or not, because of another girl, she lived in Dallas, and that's where their corporate headquarters were. And again, it was getting to the point where the people at corporate would call me to figure out how to fix the billing system that we were working on and the activation system. And I got a phone call one day, and they said, "Would you want to move to Dallas and come work at corporate in Plano in the application support department?" Well, I was already dating a girl from Dallas. She was coming back and forth. I was going back and forth, so I was always there. And I loved Dallas. I always thought Dallas was a great city. So I moved to Dallas, and I went to work for PageNet, and I was in the paging business.
And that woman became your wife?
No.
Okay.
Darn it. Then we broke up.
Oh, it's always heartache.
Always heartache. And then we broke up, and I love Dallas. I wouldn't move. I mean, I fell in love with Dallas. Had a great apartment. And one night I was out. I was in a nightclub with a buddy of mine, and my wife walked in. And this is the God's honest true story. My wife walks in, and my wife is the typical, what you expect of a Texas woman. She was 5'11", blonde hair, built like a brick shit tag, legs that went from her hip to her feet. And she walks in, and she was wearing a double-breasted leather jacket. That's it, and high heel shoes. And her hair was all over. And I turned to my buddy, and I go, "That's my future wife."
I love that.
And
I
he
love
goes,
that.
"No way." I said, "That's my future wife." I go, "Watch this." So I walk over,
Throwing full 100% Eddie New York on her.
Yeah, she walks by me. As she's walking by me, I went, "How you doing?"
Oh, you did.
I swear to God.
Oh,
all my
goodness.
children.
Oh, my God. You owe Matt LeBlanc like 58 cents or something. I don't know.
On the 4th of April, we will be married 29 years. As she's walking past me, I went, "How you doing?"
How you doing?
And she went, I swear to God, she went, "Ill." And she kept walking.
She probably would still say that.
She kept walking.
Yeah.
So when she's coming back, I go, come here. I want to talk to you." She goes, "What?" I go, "You're looking good in that outfit." I go, "But you need to be wearing something like this." She goes, "Well, how do you know what I should be wearing?" I go, "I'm a gay fashion designer. I know these things."
That's your pickup line?
That was my pickup line.
Wow.
So my wife always says, they go, "How did you meet your husband?" He goes, "He told me he was gay."
Yeah.
Right? So we started talking, and I was like, "Give me your number, I'll give you a call." She goes, "When are you gonna call me?" So I said, "I'll call you tomorrow, I don't know, 1 o'clock. She goes, "All right, you call me tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Well, the next day at 1 o'clock, I'm like, I can't call her right now. She'll think I'm needy.
Right, yeah.
So I call her like 1:15.
Right, 15 minutes was it. That's the difference between not needy and needy. Yeah,
right?
15 minutes.
So she thinks and she sat there on the old answering machines with the tape.
Oh, yeah.
And she just watched me leave a message.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she calls me back and said, "Let's get together for dinner." She's gorgeous, right? "Let's get together for dinner. Let's, you don't understand, I have to do laundry." 29 years later, when she says she has to do laundry, she has to do it's impossible a person creates that much laundry.
Yeah.
So I said, "How bad could it be? Why don't you meet me at 8 o'clock and we'll go have dinner?" She stood me up for 2 hours, and I waited. She shows up at 10 o'clock thinking I'm still there, and I was still there waiting for her.
Still there waiting. Look at that.
And we've been together ever since.
That's beautiful. And I've met her. She's great.
Yeah, she's a great woman.
Yeah, DC, last year, I think.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, no, this year, actually.
Yeah, this year. That's right, yeah. She's great people. Now, all those years. Two kids.
So pager business, and then into wireless. So.
Yeah. So I was with PageNet, and then my buddy went over to Austria to work for John Kluge, who used to own Metro Media, which spanned the world at one time, and he owned Metro Media International. Metro Media International was a partnership with Western Wireless, and they owned all these wireless companies all over the former Soviet Union, and of course paging and radio and cable and all that. So I got my experience on the international scene, because right after we got married on April 4th in 1998, we moved May to Austria. I mean, it was like,
wow.
I went on the interview on our honeymoon. When I was on my honeymoon.
So a New York bar guy living in Austria.
New York bar guy living in Austria. We had a great time. Then we moved back, and then that's when I got heavily into wireless. But that's where I started learning there's a big difference between pager billing and wireless billing.
Right.
And that's where I kind of learned all that. And then I came back, I went to work for a company called Global Mobility Systems, right? I was there for a week, and they fired half the company, changed the name to App Mobile, and we were the hottest startup. We were the last dotcom company that sold for $428 million. We were the last one before the bubble blew.
So that's 2000.
Oh, that's 2000. No, I left in 1999.
1999,
because they got bought out. They got bought out by Software.com, which became OpenWave, right? Software.com merged with Phone.com and became OpenWave. And that was the last of the big bubbles. Right?
So Phone.com. So at the time I was married, and my wife worked at a place called Parts.com.
Okay.
And guess what they did? They sold auto parts, right? Yeah. Parts.com. And there was a big convention here in Orlando. It's a big auto show, whatever. Parts.com. They had girls at the booth. They had balloons, whatever, planes flying banners. and she had stock, and that stock was at, and I'm making up numbers now, but that stock was at like 10% of a penny, and then all of a sudden the stock goes up to like $2. Like we're rich on paper, but you can't sell for a year. It goes up to $2, and that was at like day 7 of our 365 days we had to wait.
Exactly.
And it wasn't like it just fell overnight. Like each day we would wake up and it'd be a little bit less. And by the time 365 days came, we were not wealthy.
So this is so App Mobile gets purchased by Software.com for $426 million. Software.com was a publicly traded company. The stock goes up $36 the day they made the announcement.
Oh my goodness!
It just so happened I had all this equity, and I was having a meeting with Merrill Lynch, and I'm with my wife, and we walk in to the Merrill, and they just made the announcement. The stock goes through the roof. Now I actually have some real money, like real money.
Right.
So I walk into Merrill Lynch, and I'm sitting in one of those, 4-seat fake conference rooms. They only have like a round table.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, I said, well, listen. When I made this appointment, this is before something happened this morning. He goes, what happened? I go, my company was just acquired, and now this stock, these stock grants are actually worth something. And the guy goes, wouldn't it be exciting if you were that company that got bought out by Software.com? I go, I actually am. Not 5 minutes later, we're in the big conference room.
You're in a real conference room.
And there's some executive vice president of private wealth is in there.
They knock down the fake walls, and they're like, hey, come on in. And
we
here's
laughed
cookies.
to this day about that. No, it was crazy. It was a crazy time to be in the space. But what it got me was I actually worked with these guys who started the industry. Like a guy by the name of Mike Berman, who was, worked for Craig McClure and Kauser and all these guys. Jerry Wojak, who literally wrote IS-41B that allowed for global, like U.S. roaming, right? These guys were the catalyst for what this industry has become, right?
And just looking back, and it's only been 25 years. That's a crazy thing. Like
Randy Schneider wrote the book on SS7. I mean, these are the guys who taught me the industry. And I'm like, great story, Sunit Lothra, he invented the HLR, the external HLR, when he worked at Sprint. And when we had this product and service, I'll never forget some guys arguing with me about the way something works. And I said, well, let me get my CTO, and maybe he can answer your question, because I don't think we're agreeing, right? So I grabbed Sunit, I go, Sunit, can you help me here? And the guy goes into the thing, and Sunit goes, it doesn't work that way, it works this way, and he goes through the whole thing. And the guy goes to Sunit, how do you know? Sunit goes, I invented it. I was like,
he was waiting for that question. He was just waiting.
I think maybe he paid the guy. I don't know, but I was like, yeah. So I was very blessed. I was very blessed coming up in the industry to work with some of these guys who everybody, all these hundreds of thousands of employees that work for these wireless companies in the United States and outside the United States have their careers based on the guys who taught me the industry.
And that's what's so cool, and the fact that you started overseas too. So even now, I kind of struggle with the fact that our expertise is in the U.S. and in the Caribbean, the North American numbering plan, right?
Yeah.
So we're big North American numbering plan, and then you got to step out of that and think about Europe and think about Asia and think about how it works, which is different than how it works over here.
We're getting a lot closer to what they have done, but it took us a long time. Remember, we had disparaging networks. We had TDMA, we had CDMA, we had GSM, and then everything started converging. I remember when I was going to a CTIA conference. I kid you not. I remember getting off the plane, and I had I don't know how I heard, but I remember hearing AT&T was going to move to GSM, and I was shocked.
Yeah, that was big news.
That was huge news.
Yeah, and Verizon was CDMA.
And it was CDMA forever. And then eventually when LTE came out, everybody's on the same technology.
It all
merges in.
So, best conference, you talked about CTIA. We had
CTIA had some great conferences.
Yeah.
Had some great. Ericsson and Nortel had great parties.
Yeah, so my we play a lot of games
Yeah.
when I travel, right? And everybody does, right? Because it's the only way to stop from the insanity. We just had a bunch of people from ClearSky came down, and they're a bunch of technical people and people that aren't used to traveling, and they had to sleep in airports, get delayed, like all that stuff. And I was like, you see my post about, hey, I'm in Barcelona, or hey, I'm in here, but it's really not that great. Like there are bumps that happen along the way. So you got to play games, you got to do whatever. So we're sitting in a CTIA one time, and back then CTIA happened at the same time as the porn convention happened.
The adult video
I'm
awards.
sorry, yes, the Adult Video Awards. And so we sat in a room, and on the right-hand side was CTIA. That's where all the people for CTIA at the party. Yep. And on the left-hand side was the porn awards, right, for that year. And me and, God, who was it? He was the CEO of some wireless in West Virginia.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was, but we sat on a couch and we said, let's play the easiest game we will ever play in our lives. When someone walks in the front door, we're gonna guess if they're gonna go. We're gonna guess if they're gonna go left or right. And it was by far the easiest game we have ever played in our lives.
I can tell you, a couple of games we used to play in Singapore and a few other places in certain
those
bars.
Games are different. Yeah.
No. But it was just like that. We would sit there and bet on, what's going to happen next. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
CTIA used to have, unbelievably great, huge, gigantic shows.
Oh, yeah. I watched Bill Clinton and George Bush together do the keynote. Do you remember that one?
I remember that one.
And what was it? Bill Clinton said my penalty for winning presidency is now I have to be the straight man for George Bush.
There you go.
And
That's right.
They were great together.
No, they were. But I used to remember the thing was, I was like, why would they put it in New Orleans? Or why would they put it in? Well, we outgrew Orlando. We outgrew Atlanta. We outgrew everything. And there's only two places in the country you could have it. One was New Orleans, and the other one was Vegas.
Vegas, yeah.
That was it. It was absolutely out of control. It was so big.
It was. So New Orleans, I talk about travel a bit. And New Orleans is always special to me because it was, and I'll make up the time, but it was 1:45, 2 o'clock, 2:15, whatever it was. And this is a good guys are guys, right? We're just big dumb animals. That's all we are. And thank goodness we have women in our lives most of the time. So we're walking down, what's the big street in New Orleans?
Bourbon Street.
Bourbon Street. Yeah. We're walking down Bourbon Street, and I'm walking with this guy Denny that used to work with us, and there's a dildo on the street, right? Just sitting on the street, 2 o'clock. So I kick it. Then he walks over and he kicks it. And then we all start kicking it. Next thing you know, we have a 3-on-3, and we're playing dildo soccer in the middle of Bourbon Street at 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is where it gets interesting. There's a
It wasn't interesting before?
No, this is nothing. Then there's a sidewalk, right? So I kick it, and the dildo goes into the sidewalk. A guy walking on the sidewalk kicks it back in, and then a guy on my team kicks it into the goal. And Denny's like, hey, that doesn't count. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't count? He's like, well, that guy kicked it. Now, apparently, in the 18 minutes that we've been playing dildo soccer, there's a dildo soccer federation with rules. And I broke the rules. I'm like, there's no rule that says that he can't kick it. What are you talking about? So I'm actually banned from the DSF, the Dildo Soccer Federation. Yeah, I can't participate in it anymore.
I can see that happening. I can definitely see that happening.
And that's New Orleans. So
New Orleans,
CTIA was a blast.
It used to be great. And, the parties at Ericsson and Nortel and Lucent and, that used to throw were, and being able to get into them. Remember, the line to be out there. And you would walk to the front door and they'd be like, Eddie, come on in. It's like, it was crazy.
It was crazy. It was crazy. It was good times.
Yeah, it was a great time.
So now, we'll talk about some serious stuff now. So you and I try to remember like when I met you maybe, and I don't remember. So we were
kind of knew each other.
We were competitors for a while.
Yeah, I was an interrupt.
And I hated you and told people that you kicked puppies, but
I did.
Yeah. But then we became friends, and then we became partners, which has been super cool for me. But for you, you started Shush. When did you start that? A year ago?
It's a year. It's a year and a month. So
a year and a month, man. Hey. Let's take a minute. Doesn't matter. We're not on a time thing.
Exactly.
They're not yelling at us yet. So a year ago, and you decide, I've had enough of this. Like, I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, how was that? Wife supportive? Everybody supportive?
So I have tried to do my own thing a couple of times,
Okay.
and they all failed spectacularly.
They should. Yes.
And my wife was never supportive of any of them.
Oh, come on.
No, she was like, "Go get a job.
Go get a real job. Yeah.
My wife's never supportive of it, but this, she was unbelievably supportive. And what happened was, I'm a New Yorker. I'm Italian. I grew
Are
up in
you?
a big,
I had no idea.
I
Yeah,
grew up in a
yeah.
big family. I still have a problem of not being able to keep my mouth shut.
Haven't noticed that either. by
Diarrhea
the
of
way.
the mouth.
Yeah,
It does.
yeah. We were at an MEF, by the way, in Toronto, and then you can go right back to it. We're at an MEF in Toronto last year, and I was sitting there, and these guys, these nice guys, I'm sure, are on a keynote, and they're talking about something, and then you just, I don't even remember what you said, but the F word was involved more than once. And you just scream out from the audience, and I'm like, that's Eddie.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it's Eddie. And it was great.
Yeah.
Anyway, so go ahead. So
because I just don't, I don't tolerate bullshit a lot.
Yeah.
Well, right?
You're not known
especially
for
when
that.
people don't know what they're talking about.
yeah.
So, I actually was listening to what my customers were saying. Now, not telling my customers what they needed. And this is at a previous company. And I'm like, there is something here,
Yeah.
right? There is a problem in this ecosystem. And I think I could fix it. So I sat down, like what a normal person would do, is sat down and wrote out a thesis of what I believed Shush should be.
And how hard was it for you to be a normal person? That had to be a little difficult.
That was difficult,
Yeah.
but it took me a number of days. It took me a number of days, and I wrote this long 5-page thesis on the vision of the company. And so people ask me, how well do I know John Donovan? Well, I go, John Donovan's the former CEO of AT&T. How well he used to approve my expense reports. So how well do you think I know?
Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah.
And John's always been a good guy to me. He's always been like a mentor to me, and I appreciate it. And I'll never forget, I called him up. I said, no, I shot him an email, and I said, I have an idea. Can I have some of your time to run it by you and get some feedback?
How important is that, by the way? Like,
I thought it was extremely important, especially because when John retired in November of 18, that was the last time AT&T as a company was the number one telecommunications company in the world.
wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't held that title since.
What a resume.
All right? So, and I'm like, and he's a super smart guy, and just getting his feedback, even if I can get it for 5 minutes, was worth
of course.
Its weight, right? He gave me an hour.
That's incredible.
Right? It's like, Eddie, and I went through it. And what was different this time than every other time before was anytime anybody had a question or challenge or John, it goes, well, what about this? Or what about this? And I would always have the answer, right? And the answer, while may not be exactly what came out in the real world, right? It was close enough that he ends the conversation with, all right, here's what you need to do. I said, what? He goes, you need to do this, but you need to go raise $30 million. I forget the exact number. It was like $30 or $40 million. Go raise it and own this space because everybody's going to be coming for you.
Yeah.
He goes, this is a great idea. Go do this.
Everybody
and then,
loves
of course, I said, so would you like to be one of my advisors on my board? He goes, I'm on 9 boards. I'm too busy for this stuff, right?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it was super awesome that he gave me an hour. So then, but you don't want to stop at one. So I called a number of different mentors I have, of people I respect in the industry, went through the same process over and over again a couple times until I got that comfort level that, we're doing the right thing. So that was in December. So I did this from December 15th to January 2nd. And then I called my partner, Daryl, who you know.
Yep.
I said, I got an idea. He's like, I tell him what it is. He's like, I'm in. And then we incorporated on February 2nd, 2024. And then I went to Mobile World Congress on on points and
Yeah.
on $25
Points and good looks. Yeah,
points
for
and
sure.
$25 a night Airbnb or not, like Airbnb
Whatever your wife would
in
let you have.
somebody's
Yeah.
somebody's apartment in Barcelona.
I love it.
Called in favors to get a badge like you did,
Yeah, I did.
For me,
yeah. This is my first time, by the way, this year
It's
in Mobile World
unbelievable,
Congress.
right?
It was unbelievable.
And so I went and I started talking to people about this is what I'm doing. Oh, and prior to that, I went to PTC and met with one of my largest customers, and they agreed to do a POC agreement. Right?
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst to help us start raising money.
That's awesome.
Right? So I go to Mobile World Congress. I do a video interview with Evan Castell, and he goes, "I'll let you know when I post it." I was like, "Okay." So he posted 20 minutes later because it actually hit my phone.
I love it.
And I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, I launched my company and I don't even have a website." So I'm on my iPhone, I kid you not, sitting there in Barcelona, in between like hole 2 and 3 on a bench. And my friend walks by and goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm starting a company." I accidentally launched my company. I'm creating a website. And all it said was "coming soon." And like this fake logo I created right there.
That's awesome.
And we launched, and we've been
welcome to 2024. You can do it just on
since.
Yeah, and we've been part of it, which is which has been super cool.
The very next event was the MEF event, and you, me, and that maniac Tony got together, and I go, "Guys, I got an idea."
Yeah.
And it's like, I need a partner to help me get to all the rural guys, and you were like, "Let me hear it." And we sat down. We were on the patio. I'll never forget, outside, it was a little hot. We sat down, we talked, and you guys, we're in.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like that, like our industry, the regional carrier space, but also, a lot of people, and this is what drives me crazy, and I know you will agree with me, so I don't even have to think about it, but I know you'll agree with me. But people have, Tony was my boss for 15 years, and he talked about, a loser cheap, right? And you talk about loser cheap, but people have a loser mentality sometimes, and they're like flat as the new up, and that saying just drives me absolutely crazy. Like flat as the new up. Like what the hell are you talking about? Like this is the most exciting industry.
Yeah.
Everybody has a cell phone. The only ones, and I'll say this, and I think you'll agree with this too. The only ones that can screw it up are the people that are already in the industry.
That's right.
Right? They're the only ones that can screw it up. They've already screwed up cell phone calls, right? I look at a call and it says scam likely, and I made a mistake, man, because I'm stupid sometimes. And I told my wife, I said, if I'm ever going to cheat on you, I would just put my girlfriend's number as scam likely. So now, every time there's scam likely, my wife is like, "Answer it. I want to hear it." I'm like, "I was kidding." She's like, "Answer it." So I bought like 8 solar panels and I'm doing the whole thing. So it was my fault. I'm dumb. So don't do that.
Did you buy the timeshare?
Yeah, I did.
Did you get the timeshare?
I've got a timeshare in Russia somewhere, in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the only ones that can screw it up are us, and I get it.
And we have,
and I get the urge to screw it up, right? Because for me, we're owned by a parent company, and my son works in for lawyers, AI. He does this whole thing, and he called me yesterday, and whenever it was, and he said the end of the quarter's coming. And so I have to make some deals, blah, blah. We don't work in that world. We blow away our numbers so much, like quarters don't matter to me and all of that. But for people in the wireless industry who quarters does matter, like I could see maybe they're like, this is probably not great, but let's let it through. And it drives me insane because that's going to ruin the cash cow that is our industry.
So I helped start messaging.
Right.
What messaging is today, I was the part of it. Bill Dudley, Dan Lai, Chris Wright, Pat Wilcox. We started what messaging is today. It's all because of us.
Right.
Period. And and I will defend that to the day I die. Why? Because we helped invent P2P, intercarrier.
Right.
A gentleman by the name of Cormac Long wrote SMPP1, which
Jesus.
made it work, because what happened was we had disparaging networks, TDMA, CDMA, GSM, and they wouldn't communicate, so you had to take it off SS7 and move it to IP, which is what Cormac wrote,
Right.
right? Then a couple of companies out there,
And I have no idea what any of that means, but it sounds really cool.
It made P2P work. It made P2P intercarrier
And
work.
P2P is person to person.
Right.
Now I'm texting you.
This
you're
is
getting
this
text.
is a true story. I did it over the weekend. I kid you not. In 1999, 98, I sent a P2P message from Centennial, Puerto Rico, which was CDMA, to PowerTel, which was GSM.
Wow.
And I walked into our Monday morning management meeting, and I said, hey, guess what I did this weekend? I don't think it was ever done before. Maybe it was. I won't debate that, but at least I have never seen it before.
Someone will tell us
Right?
if they did it first, but
Maybe.
that's all right. Yeah.
Right? And I walk in and I go, guess what I did this weekend? And I tell them the story. I sent a message from CDMA to GSM, and then from GSM to TDMA. And my head of marketing said, wow, has anybody done that before? I go, I don't think so. She goes, we should do a press release on that. And I shit you not said, nah, no one's ever going to use it.
No one's ever going to.
My daughter's going to med school, right? Thank you, P2P messaging.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. I always think about that.
You know what I mean? It's like that. Basically,
I make my living on 35% of a penny.
I literally was. That's all I was ever involved with for years. So I worked at VeriSign. I worked at Iris Wireless. We were the big guys. So when everybody goes, so the whole 10 DLC, that happened because Bill Dudley called me up one day and said Verizon wants to send messages from their VoIP phones to the wireless networks. And we changed all the contracts to allow for that.
So it's your fault.
Yes, everybody knows it's mine and Bill Dudley's fault. And I'll never forget, we were in Vegas, CTIA, Dan Lai, Chris Wright, and we were fighting to get the contracts changed because the contracts, the peering agreement said a 10-digit mobile phone number, and we changed it to a 10-digit dialable number. And that's how Net Number got into Net Number was in the eSPID business anyway for the enum business, right? So they had that specific technology that will allow us to track where the routing had to do, because we did all the routing internally, and that creates 10DLC. And at the time we were very good. We were like, no spam, we called it bulk messaging at the time.
Yeah, I remember.
And we were like, no. We would shut people down. We had no problem. So today, all this spam that's going on in the network, all these spam calls, all that, if anybody says they don't know where it's coming from, they are lying.
They know.
They know exactly where it's coming from. And that was me yelling at that event.
I remember
when
that.
I yelled bullshit.
Yeah,
because we know exactly where it's coming from.
You're usually so reserved.
And everybody, and my point is this, we could stop spam tomorrow, at least on messaging. We could stop spam tomorrow if the providers or the originators cared less about their revenue and more about their carrier customer.
Right.
Remember, your carrier customer, and more about the end consumer.
Right.
And they don't.
They don't.
And it's so bad.
But everybody's got to make that.
But
it is difficult.
But I'm like this. Unless you make the punishment swift and severe, it will never stop.
It'll never
So
stop.
Kara at T-Mobile, she did the whole, you send spam, we're going to fine you, et cetera, et cetera. And I walked up to her and I said, this is thank you. It's about time someone did it. Because that's not our business. Our business is servicing customers, people, individuals to communicate, brands to communicate to customers, and vice versa.
Right.
Our business is not to fund, or not to make revenue off the guy selling Ray-Bans, right? Hey, buy a Ray-Ban, or hey, do I know you? Or
right.
That's
I
not,
get that all the time, but that's because girls really like me.
Exactly.
I really feel like it is.
But that's not our business, and it shouldn't be our business.
Right. No, I agree with that. And so Shush is going a long way into stopping that, and hopefully we can do that together.
Well,
and
we definitely will be doing that together.
Yeah.
But it's not even stopping that. It's actually taking. SMS was never designed for security, ever. right? It wasn't designed. OTP, the reason for OTP is we all kept losing our dongles, the one-time password dongles. We all kept losing them, and it just made sense. Everybody had a phone, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to take the security out of SMS where it doesn't belong and put it where it does belong in the network. And that whole network authentication space and being able to facilitate and help these carriers get from having nothing, not knowing what to do, to being the leaders, and protecting their consumers. And that partnership between us helping them to get there, I think is just, I'm proud to be doing that. I'm proud. I'm proud to be working with you.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be helping these carriers get there. You may have saw a few days ago the SIM swap case with T-Mobile, where T-Mobile paid $33 million in arbitration, right? And then paid $6.5 million in attorney's fees. Now, we all know about TCPA, which is I send you a bad text message, all of a sudden I'm suing the carrier or the brand for that.
And our carriers can't afford that. So that's why we try to be a part of that. That's why we try to help those carriers, and we'll continue to do that. But we'll continue to do it together.
Exactly. Because the carriers that we're working with need us more than ever. Because what that announcement allowed was open season and the liability to the carriers.
The lawyers love it.
And the lawyers love it, right? So could you imagine some of these carriers who are rural, just trying to service their communities, God forbid someone gets SIM swapped, there's shyster lawyer, whatever. I shouldn't say that, my wife's an attorney, but a lawyer out there goes, they'll bankrupt these companies. They'll bankrupt these companies overnight.
They will. And that's how we make our money, right? So
protecting them and protecting the consumer.
What I always say is, we're helping to protect them. We do everything we can to not charge those carriers, but make money with them instead, and that's what we'll try to do.
Because this is the first time that carriers are sending out data outside their four walls, right?
Right.
And being trusted with that data, working with the FCC for allowing that data, right, to go out, right? And being able to expose it in a way that everybody is protected and the right brands and the right financial institutions are consuming that data in a trusted way to protect the consumer and the network is probably the most important thing, an honorable thing that I've been doing in my life and probably my career.
Well, we should end it there because that is what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
We got to keep it going because that's how we all make our livings.
Exactly.
But we also want to protect people out there, subscribers, all of that. We want to make sure that things keep going the way that they have been going and it just doesn't get ruined.
No, and I think one other thing before we do cut it off, these poor guys have no more money. So being able to do it for them in a rev share type model allows them not to have to spend more money because they spent $500 billion on 5G without a business case. There's no more money to go around.
And you think about all the businesses that make money off of our carriers, and that's the whole thing. So we will end with that. But we changed our business model, and our thought process is always, let's make money when the carriers make money because that's the way to keep them alive.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming by. I know you're on a speaker circuit, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
See you soon.